It's time to move on over to the defensive side of the football, and this is one of the most interesting questions for the Jets because they have not one, not two, but three safeties heading towards free agency. Do they run it back? Do they bring new guys? What the hell do they do? Boy Green Meets Wudi starts now to find out. Let's go. It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
If it ain't Whitehead, is it right? Tune in to find out. Look at that caption from Wudi on Twitter. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Boy Green Meets Wudi. This is a bi-weekly. Yep, there we go. There's the term. A bi-weekly podcast live every Tuesday and Thursday, live at 3 o'clock. And our particular version that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks and many weeks to come is assessing where the Jets stand at each critical position, assessing where they are, what free agents do they have, and whether they should keep them or ditch them or what. And that's what we're doing for the safety position, which, again, is very volatile. We'll talk about that here on the program. Thanks for joining us, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or on Instagram. The James Wudi. Good afternoon, James Wudi.
Woo! We talking about defense. This is a side that has been making us happy. All right. All right. We've been depressed having to talk about this offense, evaluate the offense, looking at the cupboard, the empty cupboard. Oh my gosh, we got nothing in here. We got dust. But here on this side, we'll be able to actually look at some items, and say, ooh, let's keep that. Ooh, let's upgrade this. So I'm very excited to finally talk about a group of people that make me happy because I was upset watching this game. I know we're not talking about the Super Bowl, but just watching certain people score game-winning touchdowns that certain people that supposedly coach my team couldn't find a way to use. I cannot find a way to use this man, but he can score a game-winning touchdown. Oh, that same person also didn't know that Breece Hall can catch a football. Whoo! You should see my diary because a couple of pages got filled up that night, Super Bowl Sunday.
Well, I'm certainly hoping the Jets find out how to use the safeties in the room because, we got some questions. We got some questions here at this position. As we look at the Jets' salary situation heading into next year, like which players are under contract, which players are not. Tony Adams is under contract for next season, so he's back. He's one of the starting safeties. So that part of the equation is very simple. But they have three pending free agents that are scheduled to reach the open market, and in no particular order. That is Jordan Whitehead, Mr. 3 interceptions on opening night. In some respects, that feels like yesterday. In other respects, that feels as many months ago that it actually was. But Jordan Whitehead with his 3 picks and having a really solid season. We'll talk about him more in a second. Ashton Davis, his rookie contract is over. He is now heading towards free agency as well. And then Chuck Clark, who is the story that never was. He was the first critical injury for the Jets that I think a lot of people gloss over and forget about because it happened during the summer. But the Jets got him for a bag of beans. Supposed to be another one of those secret, crazy Joe Douglas trades that he was going to get a lot of juice out of the orange because the Ravens were kind of overflowing with safeties with Marcus Williams, of course, Kyle Hamilton, and a really good player kind of seemingly snuck out the back door to the Jets for a 7th-round pick. And we never got to see what glue he could have provided because he was out for the season with the torn ACL during the summer, which sucked really bad. So what do the Jets do? Do they bring these dudes back? Do they let them go? I guess, Wudi, before we get to our bit where we will tell everyone the top available veteran safeties that are supposed to be out there, and man, there's a fun list of guys that are both, superstars or old or young. Like there's a really nice collection plate of safeties that are going to be available coming up this offseason, which, like I said, we'll be bringing to you guys here in just a minute. But let's go through each of these pieces here, Wudi, for the 3 free agents, again, in no order. Jordan Whitehead. Do you want this man back? Because he's a polarizing guy. A lot of Jet fans hate him. I see him getting in fights with Jets X Factor all the time about who's responsible for this or who's responsible for that. Jordan Whitehead, want him back or not?
Allow me to assert myself. I don't know if I'm president because I didn't win an election, but I am a member, a card-carrying member of the Jordan Whitehead fan club. I want him back.
Okay.
I want him back. I mean, you talked about the 3 interceptions that opening night. Obviously, played a big factor in winning that game. He has 6 interceptions. The last 2 years combined. The only other player with more than 3 is Ashton Davis, who we're about to talk about in a few sentences. But Jordan Whitehead, he's led the team in picks both of his seasons as a New York Jet. He has missed 0 games, right? We've said it multiple times on this show. The best ability is availability. The boy is available, 27 years old, has a Super Bowl ring. He has the blood of Darrelle Revis inside him. I want Jordan Whitehead to remain a New York Jet.
A lot of compelling things you just said there. The age, the durability, the playmaking ability. And I will say the criticism, if there is one to be made, now some people like to go a little bit further in some of this criticism, to me, is the inconsistent tackling. A game that I constantly bring up because it jumps out, but it's not the only one, was the Jets played the Bengals early. It wasn't this past season that happened. It was a year prior.
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd on like a 50-yarder. I don't think I was at that game, but I remember watching it, and Tyler Boyd caught a pass, and Jordan Whitehead in his mind must have been like, I've seen this in Madden 1,000 times. Your ass is about to get truck stick, sucker. And then he just hits him, and Boyd bounced off like, did someone open a window? I just felt a breeze. And then he just took on to the So Whitehead, I feel like there's an inconsistent in terms of the technique of tackling. Sometimes he could profile and wrap up the way that we were all taught when we were younger, but sometimes he just goes for the flashy. I don't know if it's a split second decision or what goes into that, but he's really inconsistent with tackling where he'll have a string where he's knocking a lot of guys down. Then it's just poor angles or poor tackling or what have you. So it's a criticism. But to your point, I think there's a lot more pro than there is con for the Jordan Whitehead conversation. So I also would advocate to bring him back because, to be honest, and this will be kind of the theme for the rest of this, or maybe for these several episodes, because it's our first defensive episode talking about the free agents, there's a case to be made to run the whole unit back, to be honest. I mean, they were really, really good. Outside of a few things here or there that you can kind of blame on the offense being terrible, that the defense eventually collapsing. So I think there's a strong case to be made to run the whole group back as a whole, let alone potentially each individual piece. So I'm on board. I'm not the card-carrying member that Wudi is, but I'm in the clubhouse. I'm kind of in the back. I kind of like it's a rave mentality when others go, yeah. I'm like, yeah. So it's kind of have that thing going on. Let's go to another one. This one. I'm not only the card-carrying member, I'm the one who discovered this gosh darn fan club, Ashton freaking Davis, baby, who, again, we're supposed to have on the show, but I understand he and his representation have decided not to do any interviews leading up to free agency because, they don't want to say the wrong thing or do anything. So I said, I totally understand. So we will hopefully get that interview after he signs his deal, and hopefully that's with the New York Jets. Ashton friggin' Davis, baby, a playmaker. If you extrapolate his playmaking and his limited snaps, he'd be like, the greatest football player of all time. Interceptions, fumble recoveries. He's in the right place at the right time. And I've always said that to me is great film study, to be in the right place. I don't think that's just a 4-leaf clover shoved up the white ass cheeks of Ashton Davis. That's not how I evaluate it. I think it's great film study for Ashton. And remember, he's a raw guy. He's a former track athlete. He got into football very late in his career. That wasn't the sport of choice for him. And I think we're just great, just touching the surface, grazing the surface of what this guy's capable of. So I will loudly and emphatically slam the table to bring Ashton Davis back, hopefully on a multi-year deal. I'd love to have Ashton back.
Yeah, definitely. Let me just check my wallet. Yeah, I definitely don't have a card. But Ashton, that was somebody who I was not very impressed with, early on in his career. I felt like that was just another Joe Douglas dud, JD with the duds. But I'm so surprised you didn't even mention this, allude to this, nothing at all. The tremendous coaching of Robert Salah's defensive personnel, Jeff Ulbrich, what they've been doing, they have proven time and time again. And we talked about the offense already. So you've already heard me say over and over that they have never developed anyone, not one person came in there and was better than when they came in. But the defense, you cannot say that. Okay. The defense, they have developed all pros. Somebody that was another team's trash became the New York Jets treasure. And Ashton Davis has developed into a solid safety under this regime. All right. Boy Green just talked about the track acumen, right? This was a tremendous athlete. When he was drafted, that's what all the reports and the grades said. Oh, tremendous athlete. If they could just teach him, the ins and outs of the NFL game, then this will be a home run pick. And the prior regime was able to do that. But now here we go with this current regime. We've seen him in the right place in the right time. I mean, I've seen Sauce drop pick after pick, but for some reason, Whitehead and Ashton Davis, I mean, they might have the best hands on the defense. Both of them have the best hands on the entire defense. So, I would love to see him back. I know I've also said something about second contracts and people trying to get paid. They want that security for their families and stuff. So I definitely do not want to overpay for Ashton Davis by any means. I do not want that much money going to this position at all, to be honest with you. But
I concur there, by the way. I concur. Again, there's limited assets the Jets can use. Safety position, I think we can all say at the front, like, let's fill it, but, within reason. And if not, try to find, and we'll bring up some of those sexy names that are going to be available of other guys that may just want to ring chase and say, all right, we'll come over. I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. So, bring them back, but do not, sell the house to bring them back.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't think, and another thing I failed to mention, shame on me, the special teams, obviously, Ashton Davis has been a tremendous special teamer on top of, obviously, everything he brings to the defense. Now, this is probably not going to be an exact comp contract-wise, but something I'd love to see is kind of what the Jets gave Justin Hardy a couple of years ago. 3 years, $6 million, somewhere in that ballpark with like a portion of that guaranteed. You keep him a young guy under contract. And again, I want him multiple years because he's a developmental guy. I don't want to do these 1 year stops where maybe that's what the team will want because you want to invest less, like you're not guaranteeing money into multiple years. But I just feel like if you do this and Ashton does it again, all of a sudden his price tag is going to start to surge. If you offer the multiple years, I think he would take it for the security. And then you look smart like the Quincy Williams deal. Last year, you signed him to a 3 year, $18 million deal. Some people kind of like, that's a little expensive. And then now everyone said, whoa, what a steal. So I think that could have, to make that kind of jump, a similar impact contractually speaking with Ashton. So I'd love to have him back as well. And let's go to the last guy who I think some people want back. And I've seen a few of our comments live in here on YouTube and a few others say it. We have Dane in here for a last player, which is Chuck Clark. Dane says, bring back Chuck Clark too, please. And a couple others have said, I've also seen it on Instagram too about Chuck Clark. He is a guy, obviously, that the Jets brought in. He was a hired mercenary. They traded for him. He had 1 year left on his contract, and he was supposed to be a key piece of this at a minimum rotation, let alone potentially a starter. They used a couple of 3 safety sets this season when Ashton played big nickel. You saw that in the Eagles game, too, when they had some injuries. They played. I love him in that role. I wish they'd use him in that mold quite frankly, more often. But to Chuck Clark's point, this is a guy – and it's very Jets, right? A guy who had been an Iron Man and played 1,000 straight snaps for like 3 or 4 seasons. He comes to the Jets and immediately his leg implodes. So I understand that's a very Jets thing to happen. But I'd love to investigate, and the Jets didn't do it immediately, but it's something I saw with, I'm going to mess up the player's name, but it was a veteran offensive tackle who had a leg injury, and the team was creative and signed him to a 2-year deal. 1 year was for the rehab, and the second year would pick up. And it helped out because the player was under contract, so he could recover at an NFL medical facility. The Broncos that did this. It was like Jawan Jennings or something, but that's not him because that's the 49ers wide receiver. But whoever the offensive lineman was, I remember in my memory, was they hooked him up with that. Now, Chuck Clark, thankfully, because he got injured so early, in theory should be more available sooner in the offseason than he would have been because of the timing of that injury. Chuck Clark, do you want him back? Do you not? It's kind of a complicated contract because what do you offer a guy? Does he just take a 1 year, prove it, and that works out for the Jets and potentially for him? That's a complicated one because I think a lot of people will not want to sign a guy who's coming off a torn ACL, which hopefully helps out the Jets in the negotiation stage.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be tough. I would say I'm the least married to Chuck. I mean, and I guess that also makes sense if you're the Jets organization as well, because you know what Whitehead can do and has brought to the table. You've seen the progression of Ashton Davis firsthand, but so early into Chuck's tenure, we had this devastating injury. He was doing work with the Ravens. So I will co-sign. Not that my co-signature means anything, but if they ask for it, I can co-sign the re-sign. But I think this is where you can kind of get flexible. And from a schematic standpoint, I do want to, and we're definitely going to talk about this, as we get down to further positions. But if you look at the defenses that Salah has been a part of, that safety position hasn't really been a premium one because of the pressure generated by that front four. So he's never really put that much stock in to that position. It's like, hey, let's just coach some guys up. And, Tony Adams did a very admirable job. But by losing Bryce Huff, which seems to be the case.
Yeah, almost inevitable, it feels like at this point. Yeah.
It does. It does feel like that. Will they be able to generate the same type of pass rush? Because that to me was the big difference between 2021 versus what we've seen since, is that they didn't have a big front four. They had Quentin Williams. Look at that. Tried to bring in Carl tore his Achilles, but then Carl came back, had a pretty decent year. Jermaine Johnson was pretty solid. And then, of course, the rotation guys, Bryce Huff, JFM, all that. So if Will McDonald still needs his year to develop. Now that he's getting snaps, still needs his year to develop. Then you might want to bring a little bit more talent into the safety position. And of the three safeties that we have named, which one would I say is the odd one out? If we want to bring in a heavy hitter, that would be Chuck Clark.
Fair enough. Let's throw up the top free agent safety options again. This is in no particular order, people. That is on your screen as you see it. And there's a lot of, just a lot of names. I included all the Jet players that are in here as well, Whitehead, Davis, and Clark. But there's other ones. Micah Hyde, former Aaron Rodgers teammate, baby. How could you not squeeze that one in there? And then also potentially, hit your rival in the Buffalo Bills by getting some Micah Hyde action. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a lot of Jet fans, including myself, wanted him. I thought he was the perfect ball hawking style that the Jets could have had. Another former Packers teammate, Darnell Savage, Tayshaun Gibson, who's the 49ers guy, Xavier McKinney, Kyle Duggar, Jeremy Chin, I love a lot, but he's an injured guy, so maybe he'll come cheaper, but I also think that someone could go crazy, and me and Wudi established, I don't think this is a position, regardless of which direction you go, you can invest a lot of resources in, financially speaking. So Micah Hyde, I think, would be interesting because Rodgers would want to play with his old buddy, so I could kind of see that as a possibility. I did not include Jamal Adams on the list, who could be a cap casualty. Get Jamal Adams, the safety back. Maybe he is on this list. But I'm going to be honest, I looked through the list, and there's obviously a bunch more names than this. I have to put enough to fit on the screen, but there's even more. And I'm tantalized, quite frankly, by a lot of them. So my gut, Woody, and I know normally we give a veteran free agent pitch, and we will do that, I'm sure, but I'm kind of cool running the whole unit back, to be honest, outside of maybe you want to switch out Chuck Clark for Micah Hyde or something of that nature. You can certainly do. But I'm kind of cool running the unit back and seeing what happens. But if they do, I think you can switch out Clark for any one of these names on this list and not on this list of other guys. Like there's big, sexy names I didn't include. Antoine Winfield Jr. He ain't. It would surprise me if the Jets went that deep. Kyle Duggar, that one would surprise me. Of even Xavier McKinney's and some of these other names. These are just, unless they just have an affinity for playing for the Robert Saleh defense and what it represents and saying, ooh, I could be that piece and join up with Aaron Rodgers or something. Outside of that, I think it is going to be mostly retain and then maybe a guy like Hyde or CGJ or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, running it back, like I said, wouldn't be terrible. It's up to them, and we're not in the building, and I definitely trust the defensive coaches. I do. I do not. If this was the offense, we're talking about different things. I cannot trust what they know, but the defense, they've had a pretty good feel, right? Like for example, the best example I can think of right now is Quan, fan favorite. Everybody wanted Quan Alexander back on the New York Jets. He ended up signing with the Steelers. Not a lucrative deal, and a lot of fans at that time were like, "Well, Jet, what are you guys doing?" You know, but they knew what they had in Jamie and Sherwood. He stepped in there, had a very solid season, and so that's I'll trust your judgment there on if they feel like running it back is the best option. A name that I will bring up that's not on this list, that is probably not sexy, but is a very high ceiling name, is Cameron Curl. Okay,
He's rated very favorably on PFF.
He's definitely a PFF darling. He was on the Commanders. That is a defense. I mean, this year, right? They kind of in the middle of the season had a fire sale, but
Yeah.
the previous year that was a team that was generating consistent pressure from its front four, and then he was just cleaning up the back end. So one thing that PFF grades him so highly on is actually what they knock Whitehead on the most, which is that open field tackles. They give him a lot of credit for his angling and things like that. He's only 24, is a 7th round pick, and a lot of people don't know him. So to be able to try to get him on one of those deals that Boyd Green talked about to get the security of length, right, without a lot of money, I think is a pretty sweet deal. And that would be something that could potentially take this defense to the next level if they are not able to match Bryce Huff's production from the pass rush.
A couple of points. Dakota says, "Hey, I prefer Jordan Poyer over Micah Hyde." Well, that's nice, but Jordan Poyer's under contract for the Buffalo Bills for 2024. So, I'd prefer Patrick Mahomes to, Zach Wilson. Well, that's just dandy, but he's not available. So, all the Jordan Poyer people, I'm afraid he's under contract actually for the Buffalo Bills for 2024. Last year is when he was available as a free agent. And the current projections from PFF actually have the Commanders franchise tagging Cameron Curl, which would be a 1-year deal for $16.26 million. He was labeled as one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and they expect Washington to franchise tag him, which goes to say $16 million. That's $16 million I don't have, baby, potentially for that kind of money. So that could be a little aggressive. But to your point, I understand the breadth of what you're saying, that he is so overlooked, he is so underrated, and there's sexier names, quote unquote, on the market that maybe he slips under the radar and just goes, so whoop, hopefully. Or perhaps, like I said, it could just be too expensive from that perspective, potentially. Okay.
Yeah, definitely not trying to spend a double-digit number or double-digit millions of dollars for anyone, for any safety.
Yeah, I concur. So, all right, let's wrap up here. We talked about all the individual free agents to be at safety. So ultimately, why don't you do this? Tell me who you believe will be back of the three. And then we'll also give a veteran answer if there is one to be given, or just run it back completely, I suppose. Okay, of the three, which three are coming back in your mind? Well, prediction time. Not what you want, what you think will happen.
Oh, what I think. Oh, that sucks. Because I don't think they will re-sign Whitehead, but I'll be as
really. Wow.
I don't think they will, but I want them to. I have the card. Okay. I have the card. So I think Ashton Davis is the only one that can sleep confidently saying, "Hey, I'm a New York Jet this upcoming season."
You said Ashton is the only one that can sleep that way?
Yes.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm in the same camp. I'm bringing back Ashton Davis. I think Chuck Clark, like I said, maybe he's a guy that comes back in May or something. Like he's hanging out for Connor McGovern's a good example. The week of the draft, Connor McGovern's still out there. The Jets brought him back on a no-nothing deal. Maybe Chuck Clark. They let him hang out there because there's no urgency to sign a guy who's coming off a torn ACL. He's hanging out there forever. The Jets go, all right, come on, you bastard. Come on in for dirt cheap. And he's like, all right, fine. Like at first he's like, no, I'm going to sign a deal. No one signed it. We're like, all right, fine, I'll come. So I'll say Ashton Davis comes back, and yeah, I mean, I'll circle the wagons. I think Micah Hyde, the Aaron Rodgers connection, hurting a division rival. He's a guy who's still playing the game very well. Obviously, there's an injury or two last season that factored into the equation. But to me, Micah Hyde is such a talented player, and maybe he'd be willing to take a little bit less to come with the Jets. This is an older guy. There's some silver whiskers in his 33-year-old beard. He ends up turning 34 at the end of December this past season, but he was a longtime Green Bay Packer, came over to the Bills, was an all-pro for them in 2017 and 2021. He was a Pro Bowler also in 2017. He just does a little bit of everything. I love the versatility. He can pass rush. He's got 24 career picks. He's sacked 5 times. He's got forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, just an overall playmaker. Also, he is a capable returner if you need him in that role as well, although I'd prefer not to with his age, considering I'd probably keep him exclusively on the defensive side of the ball. And I know people will eye roll about the Aaron Rodgers thing, but he's a guy that I would like. And also, just to say this before I get to you, Woody, as Matthias says, draft a safety. I'm going to be honest, I'm not really interested in that. Now, I get you could do that, and it's possible, especially with 3 safeties, again, set to become free agents. Your only guy is Tony Adams, who's on a UDFA deal. So there's a path to drafting a safety. To me, I want to keep all the draft picks, like 99% of them offense. So veteran running back, I don't want to draft the running back late, although they're projected to get a couple comp picks. Safety is not a place I want to draft. Quite frankly, I want to keep it all on offense. So I'd be willing to ride out the safety game, and then we could figure out safety in 2025 or 2026 or something in the future and think about more important positions in my mind. So bring back Ashton Davis and bring on Micah Hyde with Chuck Clark. I expect to join us in a few months on a dirt cheap deal. That's my safety room. What say you, Woody?
I'm just torn because what I would do versus what I think they will do.
Well, you can pick. You don't have to. You no longer. I was just curious your thoughts. Our poll for what we'll trot out there. This is my belief. I don't know if they're really looking at Micah Hyde, but to me, he's just a phenomenal playmaker, and he's one I am predicting. I'm putting it out in the poll universe after this show is the Micah Hyde with the others. So I'm advocating pounding the table for Micah Hyde. So you don't have to force feed me what you believe the Jets will do. Whatever you think, pal. You give it to me.
Hey,
you have the car. You have the car.
Somebody with 2 little ones at home. I do a lot of force feeding. Let me tell you.
Hey now.
But no. So I mean, Micah Hyde, for everything that you said, is obviously he would be a great player. If I got that text through my phone or saw the tweet, of course. I do think he is way more expensive.
That's very possible
when we're talking about. So I don't know. If that will be a true possibility for the Jets. I personally, I'm bringing back Whitehead. I'm bringing back Ashton, and I will respectfully, but still.
Hey, I will just add this in real quick, just because you said it. SpotTrack's market value is $3.7 million for Micah Hyde.
That's definitely not that. That's not high. That's not high.
No, that's a 1-year deal is what he's projected to get from SpotTrack. So that's even less than I thought it was. I thought you were right. I thought there was a chance he could get a little bit of money, but with that kind of projection, I feel even better about the deal now.
Well, we don't know because that same SpotTrack said that Connor McGovern was due $9 million, and my boy, only got the 1. So, projections are what they are, right? They are projections.
Yeah. Sure.
But I will go Whitehead. I'll go Davis, and I will, again, respectfully but quite strongly disagree with your belief about drafting a safety. This regime has proven that they can draft people late and develop them to reach either their ceiling or something awfully close. Michael Carter II was a 4th-round pick that is now one of the 5th-round pick. Excuse me, sorry. The other Michael Carter was a
4th-round pick. That can be confusing.
And this Michael Carter is a 5th-round pick that is now the best, or arguably the best nickel cornerback in the league. I mean, if he's not number 1, if he's top 5, for him to be from 5th round to top 5 in that conversation, I mean, they have been doing that. We're talking about Tony Adams. His spot is secure. That's an undrafted free agent. I will continue to bring up Quincy. Bryce Huff, also undrafted. They have proven to find guys with just the raw talent, and they do the rest. So while I wouldn't even entertain the thought of drafting a running back like that, because I know there's no one on that side that can coach people up, I absolutely, positively, I will be disappointed if any offensive player is drafted after the 5th round, because all those guys could just go to the defense and just be built into something great. They've done it time and time again. So yes, draft that safety. Have people not even blink an eye when we draft somebody in the 7th round, and now they are all pro.
Do you have a name, or are you just saying the general strategy of take a guy late based on their history of developing guys, whoever that player is, or do you have a specific name?
I do not have a name for this specific situation. I would say draft. Yeah, find whoever.
Draft one,
because and they have guys that aren't necessarily the popular guys, right? Like they had Jermaine Johnson way higher than every other team.
Obviously, yeah, they took him 26 overall. They had him as a top 10 player on their board, and obviously the rest of the draft didn't feel that way. Even go back to, although this isn't the same level, it's actually the reverse in a way, but Tony Adams was an undrafted free agent, and look, he's developed into a starter. So to your point of these late round picks or UDFAs of finding talent. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. The defense, I trust them to develop. So just find whoever has that skill set that they like, okay? And then let's have them be a starter because, like you said, Tony Adams, Michael Carter II, Bryce Huff, Quincy Williams, all these guys that were just not.
JFM was another waiver wire claim.
Mm-hmm. JFM, yes, exactly, that have been turned into key pieces of this unit. I'll do that with this regime time and time again.
Hell, even Brandon Eccles, I would throw a 6th rounder. Hey, he's been really solid too when he's been called upon. That's another guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Sherwood, the linebacker too.
Yeah, he hasn't been as sexy, but he's probably the same category as Eccles, maybe. Although Eccles has made a few more plays, he's had a few more ops. But yeah, that's fair.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So that's what I'll do. That's what I can't do that for the offense, right? We still wait for Brownlee to enter the rotation. If that was a corner like Brownlee, like having these highlights and dominating the social media cycle, oh my gosh, I can't speak. All training camp, right? If that was a corner doing that, I promise you there would be a starter, there'd be a household name right now. But we only have coaches for one side of the ball. So I would say Jordan Whitehead, he has the blood of Revis inside him. Ashton Davis, okay, all the way up. That's all we can go is all the way up. Elite athlete, and then draft the next big stud in that late round. Anything after
day 3,
right? Anything on the defensive side, 4th round and above. I'm talking 5th and later. 5th and later.
That's a very clear line. I like that. And again, to repeat, Ashton Davis. I've got Micah Hyde, and then ultimately Chuck Clark being brought back for a half-eaten Snickers bar. It's like, you're talking about force-feeding your children, right? Here comes the choo-choo, whoop, and then Chuck Clark's like, don't want it. It doesn't want to march. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll come back. And then April, choo-choo, whoop, still Chuck Clark, no, do not. And then June, he's like, all right. Yeah, the spaceship lands. Yep, Chuck Clark. Boom. That's what's going to happen. So there's the 3. We'll put that out on the Twitter universe, guys, so you guys will continue to vote. We didn't have one last week because me and Woody were in agreement for once about the bringing everybody back on special teams. So hopefully eventually one of these episodes we could just start off the show, kick it off with the news of boom, the Jets have brought everybody back like groovy. They did what they're supposed to. But we'll give you the safety poll. Go over to Twitter at BoyGreen25 and James Wudi. I will also throw it up on his Twitter as well, so you can check it out there for voting. And then Thursday at 3:00, we talk about the cornerbacks, and that one's a little sneakier than you think because Michael Carter II heading into a contract year, DJ Reed heading into a contract year. Cornerback's a much bigger need long-term than people are talking about, and the Jets have some business decisions to make this offseason to set the future of what that cornerback position is going to be. Do you re-sign MC2 this offseason? Do you re-sign DJ Reed? Do you do something crazy? We'll talk about that coming up on Thursday. Looking forward to it, Woody.
Yes, absolutely. Defense, all right? We're gonna lock up with this side of the ball, and Hey, I know people are talking about on social media, Sauce getting burnt by that YouTuber. All right, we're not going to talk about that, all right? All right, he's still.
Sauce was right. He quote tweeted that, by the way, and said, "Yeah, the quarterback got sacked. He was running a route for like 30 seconds." And he's like, quarterback got sacked 30 years ago, man.
In Salah's defense, yeah, because Sauce has been spoiled in his NFL career with this elite pass rush.
He's got to cover for like 2 seconds and it's over.
Exactly. The spoiled. Yeah. The boy is spoiled. I hate to say it. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but the boy is spoiled.
Yeah. It's beautiful, and he will continue to be spoiled, hopefully, for many years to come, as Will McDonald takes that next leap. But more on that in a future episode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you Thursday at 3 o'clock for more Boy Green Meets Woody. Plus, tomorrow morning, Boy Green Daily, we got a saucy Jets trade draft proposal to discuss. Oh, yeah, baby. A draft day trade already being talked about, and we'll throw that into your universe tomorrow morning at 7:30. Take care, everybody. We'll see you then. God bless. Peace. Boy Green Meets Woody, out.